Welcome to Sure Thing. We're Lakey Peterson
and Kaleigh Gilchrist, two athletes who love exploring the world and sharing our stories.
We'll be taking you through the good times, the tough times, and everything in between.
Basically, it's about chasing dreams, staying inspired, and having fun along the way.
Thanks for hanging out with us.
You're listening to the Sure Thing podcast with your hosts, Lakey Peterson and Kaleigh Gilchrist. And today we're kicking off a brand new episode series called Lakey's Lowdown, where we'll break down Lakey's past contest results, and she'll give it to us in detail. And basically the goal of this is to follow Lakey through the 2026 tour and learn, obviously, about her results, but more so the ins and outs of traveling on the World Championship Tour. So Lakey, first contest in the books, quarterfinal finish at Bells Beach. How are we feeling?
Yes, feeling good. I just got to West Oz last night. As you can see, I've got this impromptu studio here in the bedroom. But yeah, it was good. It was nice. You know, we had such a long time off, as I've talked about a bit. And so I think it was just nice to get going and finally, you know, kick it off. We really didn't get great waves, which was that's just always a bummer for everyone. Like, you just hope for at least consistent surf. So it was a tricky contest for that. But yeah, it felt good to get going. A fifth is a result. Would have liked to do better, but at least we're on the board. Some good moments, some not good moments, but overall, you know, I think it was a good start. So yeah, it felt good to get the ball rolling, and now we're going. We got like 6 in a row here. So
yeah,
keep it going.
I was looking at the schedule. It's wild. I think for those that don't follow as religiously as most surfers do, there's 12 contests this year. 9 out of 12, I believe, count towards your overall points. And each contest is 10,000 points, except for the last one, Pipeline's 15,000 points.
Correct.
And all of your points accumulate to an overall champion. So, you know, Lakey's got to keep her result with that 5th place, and she can move forward, obviously hoping to grow on that result. But you have to think of 5th place, that's a keeper in your back pocket. First contest of the year. You must feel pretty good about that. And then you talked about it, but we have 4 contests back to back to back. So she left. Contest ended on Sunday. Is that correct?
No, contest ended on
Friday.
Yeah, Saturday. Friday for you, Saturday for us in Australia, because we're a day ahead.
Then the next day, flew to West Oz, and the waiting period for West Oz starts in like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, a couple of days. Yeah, it's a quick turnaround, like boom, boom, boom. And the same with the Gold Coast. I mean, we got a little bit, I don't want to say unlucky, but Bells went to the very last day, which is a little unusual, I would say. Usually the comps end a bit quicker than that, but because we just had such a rough surf forecast, it went to that last day. So that makes it harder. Usually I would say, even though the events are back to back, you get a little bit more time than what we'll have here for the turnaround. But yeah, it doesn't, the train doesn't stop at this point. We're just rolling.
All right. So let's talk about the heat. So you were in that round 1 heat. So what I like as a fan and a viewer, there's no more non-elimination rounds. Every heat counts. You either win or you lose. So that is new this year. I'm sure as a surfer, you might like that non-elimination round a little bit. But you finished 9th last year, so you surfed in round 1. The top 8 got to skip that round and go to round 2. So Lakey matched up with the wild card. And in each contest, usually there's a sponsorship wild card or trials, like locals will compete to win, and then they get a shot in the main event. So Lakey matched up with Ellie Harrison, a local, and that was a pretty funky heat, huh?
Nicely said. That was a put explanation for people. That was impressive. Yes. So because I finished 9th last year, I was actually the highest seed in that first round. The top 8 from last year were skipped into the next round, obviously round 2. So I got that wild card, being the lowest seed, quote unquote. That's who I got. And actually it was a hard draw. Ellie is on the Challenger series. Definitely could make the tour, in my opinion. Probably will make the tour one day, and from Bells area, so obviously knows the wave very well. Both Bells and Winky Pop, the 2 waves we surf at that event. So yeah, and it was funky. We were like at Bells Bowl, and it was such a typical bad bowl day, but that they would always run. Like, it was windy and getting high tide, which if you've surfed bells, or if you've never surfed bells, the tides really affect that wave, like more than a lot of other waves on the calendar. So you want low tide, but a lot of times to finish the round, I was the last heat of the round, and usually that's like when the tide's getting higher because they'll start it on the low or whatnot. So that was just a sketchy heat. It was sort of like I don't want to say either of us could honestly win that heat, just with the waves that were coming through and kind of the opportunity that was out there. Was a little bit of like pick your wave and hope it works out. It wasn't so clear. A lot of heats you can go out there and be like, I know exactly the wave I'm looking for. I'm going to sit right in this spot. I know it's going to come. Second wave of the set's better. Like, can be very structured, where I felt like that heat won. And honestly, the whole event for bells actually in the end ended up being like a little bit of lucky dip, not that many perfect waves coming through right in the spot, like where you're usually comfortable with. So anyways, yeah, the round one against Ellie, she actually had one really nice turn, got a 6 for one turn, which is a big score for one turn. And I kind of just put it together. I was pretty nervous and definitely made a couple mistakes in the beginning, and then did well at the end. I held her off a good wave and actually got a nice score. And she didn't need much of a score, and I had priority. So yeah, I was happy to kind of execute it at the end well, but it was definitely one of those ones that was like, yeah, it was sketchy if you got on the wrong side of priority and a good one came. It was a bit of a lucky dip, that heat.
For sure. And then from my commentating view from watching across the world online, it just seemed like there was definitely nerves for both of you guys. First contest in 7 or 8 months, like that is totally natural. And sometimes what people think, like, you see yourself match up as a wild card, but wild cards are actually really tough because they have nothing to lose. This is their one shot, so they're just going to go for it, rather than a lot of the competitors that are there for the whole year. They're trying to build, and you never want to lose to a wild card. So, obviously maybe they don't have as much experience as a full-time tour surfer, but they obviously have a skill set to get them that far. And again, like I said, nothing to lose. So they can always be, pretty tough.
For sure. 100%. It's like, even especially places like Hawaii, like weird specialty waves, I feel like the wild cards are almost the hardest draw sometimes. So yeah, it's not, I don't know, the seedings, it's definitely not the easiest person to get by any stretch of the imagination. So yeah, totally. I was stoked to get through that one and get into that next round, especially just to get my seeding up a little bit more too.
Yeah. And then, as Lakey mentioned, so the seeds get reset after every contest, correct? So you won't have to do that round one in West Oz? Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah.
No, I skipped it. Yeah.
And then her round 2 heat versus Aaron was all time. Like, that was so much fun to watch. I think, just watching as a friend and a fan, I was like, you controlled that heat. It was flawless, in my opinion. And I know you've been working on a lot of different maneuvers and just switching things up a bit. And I think you brought tons of stuff. Obviously you have your carve that everyone knows you of, but you did some amazing snaps and just a bunch of variety on the wave, and it showed. And it was cool for me to watch, knowing that that's what you were working on. And of course, somebody like Erin Brooks, you can never counter out. Her backside's insane. Obviously got that great score at the end, but everyone that knew the sport knew that you bettered your score too. So that was a really, really fun heat to watch. So want to walk us through that one a bit?
Yeah. Thanks, Kay. It was fun. It was definitely, so that for that heat, we moved down to Winky Pop, which is kind of it's not the backup site for bells, but like I was saying before, bells can be so tidal that sometimes you need to run heats. If you want to get a full day competition, Winky Pop, which is just the 1 point down, is where they'll run it. And they ended up running a lot of the event down there, this event, because there wasn't too much swell. And it's funny because when I saw I had Erin, I was like, dang, I'd love to get her in at surfing at Bell's Bowl, because I feel like that was probably more of my strength. I think Erin's pretty good when it's like quicker and smaller and a little faster. And I felt like that Winky's was that day we were competing. So I was like, shoot, I would have loved to get her at the Bell's Bowl. But that being said, Winky's definitely, I'd say, a strength for me too. And the waves were really fun in that heat. It was slow, so not too many waves coming through, but it's so funny. Like, obviously the more you surf events, and I've been doing this for a long time, so I know, how to surf a heat and put a heat together, but having priority at the right time in a heat when the waves are a little bit slow is really critical. And for those who don't know what that is, it's basically a surfer gets to choose what wave they want based off of whose turn it is throughout the heat, and what the rotation is, which maybe doesn't make too much sense. But anyways, I felt like the priority and just the way the heat started for me just fell into place, which honestly sometimes is a little bit of luck. Like you just get the first wave and then they take it maybe a bad wave. You have a score on the board and you get priority, and then you're just like in a really nice rhythm. And I felt like for me in that heat, I just made the right decision at the beginning of the heat, which put me in like a really nice rhythm the whole heat, and to keep putting pressure on her. And yeah, it's funny because that whole day I knew there was 2 waves in a set, and the second wave was kind of better most of the time. But it was 2 waves a set, but there wasn't many of them. And I had the lead, and there was, we were kind of counting down. It was coming down to like the last minute, and I could see up at Bells, because you can see that point from Winky, and I could see a big set, and I was like, oh, there's 2 minutes, and it usually takes like a minute and a half for the set to get from Bells to Winky. And I was like, okay, it's going to get here in time. I got priority. You got to look at, like, in my head, I was going through this whole scenario, and she needed an 8, which is a big score, but so doable for her, and especially on the right wave out there that day. So anyway, sure enough, with like 30 seconds left, the set came down to us, and I took the first wave knowing there was a wave behind it, but I just looked at it and was like, I know this is a good wave that I'm looking at right now, and I think I could better my score and make her need even higher than an 8.
Was yours a 7? You had a 7 and a 7.5 at that point? Something along those lines?
Yeah, I had a 7.5 and something along those lines.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe. And so anyways, I felt like I actually made the right decision, executed super well. I ended up getting an 8.5 on that wave, so she then needed a 9.5. And she belted her wave. She got like an 8.9. So good thing I did better my score, because she would have, before that she needed an 8. So yeah, I don't know. That was just a great heat. It honestly was probably one of the better, it was one of the smarter heats I've surfed probably in a long time. And a little bit of that was just luck rolling with me, but also I just felt like I surfed really free and attacked the lip, which is a huge goal for me this year, and just didn't kind of let nerves get in the way. And I was just clear with my decision making and trusted myself. And it's just crazy. Like, you try so hard to do that every single time, but that's so hard to do every time. And then when you do it, like I had that heat and I was like, frick, it just felt almost easy. Like I was just trusting myself and doing what I do. But it's so hard to actually apply that, like, heat in, heat out. So yeah, I was stoked to get it rolling and just realize like I do have that firepower and I do have that decision making, for the rest of the year. It's in there. So yeah, it was a good one.
For sure. I mean, your surfing has always been great, but it definitely looks spicy. And then I think this is great for listeners because there's so much thinking and decision making in surfing that people don't know about. When you're sitting out there with priority, playing a numbers game, so you got to deal with math, you got somebody yelling your scores from the announcer, you're watching bells, the second point, trying to time the waves and figuring out if the set's going to come in at time, watching heats prior preparation, like you said, knowing that the second wave was the best. So there's a lot that goes into surfing heats, which is great for those that don't know the sport. And then you talked about priority and the luck a little bit. Your quarterfinals matchup versus Molly, which is classic for those that have been following the Short Thing podcast. We had Malls on, a couple months ago, and we talked about some of you guys' great battles, and I was just fired up to watch it. And even beforehand, it was slow again, but you guys were right on top of each other, already battling. And I was like, this is going to be a good one. But I knew you would not want to give up that inside. And if you watch the quarterfinals, the first one, I think with Alyssa in, she didn't want to get up the inside. And that was the best wave of the heat. But for your heat, you went on the first wave and it wasn't necessarily the best wave. So it's really sometimes just luck of Mother Ocean. So talk us through that one.
For sure. So the quarter, I had Molly, who's staying with us right now, so just outside this door. Yes. You probably hear me. But I had Molly, which obviously I was like, okay, this is gonna be a really good heat. And again, it sucked. Like the waves were so slow and bad, and you just, for everyone's sake, like every heat, you just hope both of you guys can get a lot of good waves and have just like a really good battle where you're both throwing down scores. Like that's the dream scenario. So it was a bummer that my quarterfinal in hindsight ended up being so dang slow, and the swell direction for that heat had changed. It went more west, which usually pushes the waves a little further down the point than their normal spot and further in, which I identified, but I think in hindsight, I ended up sitting too far up the point, even than what I thought. I went further wide, but I think it was even further down the point and further in than where, I originally thought. But yeah, at the beginning, I was like, okay, there's kind of only one good wave in the sets, where the day before there was two good waves in each set, basically. So I was just thinking, okay, even if there's two waves in a set, there's usually one that's the one and allows you to turn the whole wave and doesn't close out. And so we were definitely, both trying to hold each other's inside in the beginning of the heat, and I wasn't going to back down. She wasn't going to back down, and she did well. She pushed me deep on the first one, and it was a set. So I was like, okay, so we ended up paddling each other too deep, and I looked at the wave and knew it was kind of going to close out, but I thought maybe I could get two good turns, which would be a score before that closeout. And I couldn't. It ended up, I was too deep. I couldn't get around the section, lost priority, and then that teed her up perfectly. Then, of course, the good wave came and she could move down and be right in the spot. And she got that kind of one really nice wave that allowed her to turn and surfed it well and executed it perfectly. And then it kind of just left me, chasing. I think I did a poor job in that heat. I didn't really need much to beat her, honestly. Like, I needed a big score in the end, but if you break it down, it only was like maybe 2 5s. And then if you broke it into two different scores. And I feel like with like 19 minutes left, I kind of sat and was waiting for another good wave to come. And honestly, another good big set just didn't come for about 20 minutes, which is unfortunate. But in hindsight, I probably should have moved over and in and kind of hustled. And maybe I could have got 2 5s on two kind of smaller mid-range ones. And then, all of a sudden I'm in the lead, or at least I don't need as big of a score. I could have chipped away at it a bit better. So I was kind of bummed on my performance in that way. I think I could have surfed a smarter heat, even though it was slow and the ocean obviously didn't give us many chances. There's only so much you can do, which is a bummer to lose like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, she surfed a perfect heat, and I surfed a poor heat, and it worked for her, and she got that one wave, and that was kind of the aim of the game that day. So yeah, it was a bummer to go out like that. Wish we could have got better waves, but sometimes it's like, what do you do?
Totally. I mean, just as watching it, it just looked like it was the luck of the ocean in that heat. I mean, you had that one where you kind of came late to that last section, maybe would have gotten your 5-5, but nothing really came after that too. So those are the ones in sports you can't harp on it too much. You like, okay, what I do right, what I do wrong, what did I learn? Time to move on, type thing, huh?
100%.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Keep going.
So I'm gonna ask you this after every contest, but I want to know just one high and one low contest related, and then one high and one low outside of surfing during your travel and during your time.
Okay, contest related. I would say my high for sure was my heat against Aaron in round 2. I was just really happy with my decision making and my mind space, and how I just competed and I just attacked. And so that was a big high for me, because that's a huge goal for me. I'd say my low was not feeling like I knew the positioning right in my heat against Molly, and I felt like I should have for how much time I've spent there. I felt like that was just not good enough, and I should have known that, and I should have identified that, and I didn't. So that was probably my low competitively. High in terms of just my travels and being there. We did a really cool Rising Tides event this year at Bell's, which is where a bunch of the local girls get to come surf with us before the contest. And that was just a cool one. I've done a bunch of them. We do them everywhere we go. But the waves were really fun that morning. We got to surf Bell's Bowl, and I don't know, the girls were just so stoked and just ripping. There was a huge turnout, and they were super encouraging to each other. So yeah, that one was just a fun Rising Tides. I think it was just rad to see the up and coming talent from around there, and get to stoke them out. They were like beaming coming out of the water, just getting some of the best
awesome.
waves of their life. One girl I slung into this one set wave. I was like, "You sure you want it? This is a bomb." And she's like, "Yeah." And she came back out. She was like, "That was the best wave of my life." So
oh my gosh,
that was my
that's the
high.
best. That program is so great.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. Do I do a life low too? Sorry, I wasn't listening well enough.
If you got one, maybe something. Yeah, maybe you had to put on a wetsuit, or maybe something like that.
I definitely did that. It was cold a couple days. I think a life low it was a busy event. I had a busy, I had a lot going on in my personal and professional life. It was just, I felt like I didn't stop or have too much time to kind of, just be with me for a minute. So that was a bit tiring. So that was maybe a personal
So
low a little bit.
I thought your high might be something different.
I know. It is. My high is selling or buying a house, and it's public knowledge now. But I guess I haven't just posted anything on my stuff. But yeah, we bought 9 acres while we were there. That's definitely the high of everything for sure. But
Yeah.
I don't
Hearing it first from the Sure Thing podcast. Lakey breaking news, setting some roots at Bell's.
Yeah,
obviously her husband's from there, so it was just a matter of time. But congratulations, that's amazing. You're gonna have some visitors.
Oh yeah, you better come visit me. Yeah, we're looking forward to, splitting our time more, be at Bell's, but also obviously be in California, and all my sponsors are there, and we'll still, be a lot in both places. But yeah, pretty surreal. We're definitely, I can't believe it. It's pretty epic.
How far are you? How far are you from the ocean?
I'm like literally 3 minutes from Bell's Beach parking lot.
Oh my gosh,
so
what a dream.
Yeah. I know.
Hard work pays off, people.
Nuts.
All right,
This
so
is
now
true.
you just said, you said you're in West Oz. So what does your schedule look like till the contest? Like I mentioned, it's in 3 or 4 days is the waiting period. So what does that look like?
Yep. Yeah, I just got to West Oz, so I'm actually gonna go surf right now. In about 20 minutes with my coach down at Main Break. It's pretty small today, but just gonna feel out some boards. Probably surf a lot over the next few days, and I think it'll start. It looks like the very first day is kind of the best day of the forecast. This forecast looks bad for here, like really bad. So I hope something changes. But yeah, I'm now just sort of a little bit in surf and recovery mode. I felt like I was saying I was pretty overwhelmed at Bell's. We just had a lot going on with everything. So probably, surf, train a bit, kind of just hermit a little bit also, and get ready for the next one and be ready to surf, on that first day. I'm not in that first round, so I don't know if they'll get to my heat on that very first day, but I think the waves look pretty fun over these next few days. So I'll just be trying boards, because all the boards here at West Oz are very different than the boards I was riding at Bell's. I'll be on bigger boards here because the waves are a lot bigger. So kind of just working through, that new quiver that I have and seeing which ones feel good.
Amazing. And then goals for this contest. Obviously, the goal is always to win, but do you have any certain smaller goals that you want to accomplish?
Yeah, I think goals for this comp, similar to Bell's, I really just want to, every wave I take off on, I want to feel like I surf complete and in full attack mode with zero hesitation. I think a lot of times in the past, I hesitate when it's a heat or if I'm nervous, and then I surf safe and you can see it and it reflects in my score. So big goal is just every wave I take off on to like fully attack that lip 100%. And if I fall, I fall. But if I don't fall, and I shouldn't fall out more times than not, I think that results in my best surfing. And then, just smart heat surfing. I think this event's going to be really tough for waves. I think it's going to be super challenging conditions and windy and sloppy. And so, a big goal for me is just to kind of keep positive. It's easy to have a bad forecast and be bummed that you're surfing heats that day, but be positive, pick good waves, and just, someone's going to win at the end of the day. So just figure out the best way to do that.
Amazing. Well, we're going to be cheering you on. I'm going to do a little shout out for other surfers. I watched the contest a decent amount when I was up, and I got to get a shout out to both Steph and Carissa for coming back. Obviously, Carissa as a mom, so that was awesome to watch at Bell's. Gabby Bryan looks on fire. She crushed it this event, deserved that win. Isabel Nichols was kind of my dark horse. She looks good and spicy. And then I got to give a shout out to last year's world champs. Both Molly and Yago made it to the finals. That just shows how much consistency the two have. And Miguel Pupo winning his second ever career win after being on the tour for, I think it was like 13 to 14 years, which is pretty amazing. Good. So I didn't watch all the guys' heats as much as I'd like, but I'll be doing my own personal fan shout outs at the end of these episodes as well. So everyone's ripping. We're excited for the contest number 2 of the season, and we're all rooting for you, Lakey.
Let's go. Thanks, KG. Woo! We'll talk to you guys after the next one.
Good luck.